EarthBound is a game that needs no introduction for many of you, but for those uninitiated into the cult of NES, I'll give a quick rundown. Mother is a quirky RPG for the Nintendo Famicom released exclusively in Japan in 1989. The game is created by Shigesato Itoi, a multi-talented Japanese celebrity who was perhaps best known at the time as the voice of Tatsuo in the film My Neighbor Totoro. The game was well received by critics and audiences and earned itself a sequel on the Super Famicom, Mother 2, the only game in the series to be released outside of Japan. Here in the US, we know the game as EarthBound, and while reviews and sales upon its release in 1995 were less than favorable, the game is looked at now as an all-time classic and a standout title for the SNES. While much can be said about EarthBound, one of the most unique aspects of the game is its heavy use of sampling well-known bands and songs in its soundtrack. 3 composers contributed to the game's soundtrack, but only Hirokazu Tanaka chose to incorporate samples into his works. Today we'll go through the samples he picked and show how they were used to create the songs from EarthBound's quirky and memorable soundtrack. It doesn't take long to encounter your first sample in EarthBound. When starting a new file, the game first asks you to name the 4 main characters, along with Ness's dog, even though he's only in the game for like 5 minutes. On this menu, we can hear a song with what sounds like crowd murmur in the background. This is our first sample, and it's actually taken from the intro to the British sketch comedy show Monty Python's Flying Circus. Although it sounds reminiscent of random chatter, this is actually a sample of a horn section. For this video, I'm only going to be playing 3.5 seconds of each sample in order to avoid copyright issues. Tanaka plays this sample at a few different pitches to add some unusual texture to the song. Also in this track is a sample of a voice saying "infinity" from the intro to the American medical drama Ben Casey.
Infinity.
This sample is used at random intervals throughout the song. I think Tanaka really just wanted to add elements of weirdness to one of the game's first tracks to set the stage for what a strange game EarthBound is. Both of these samples were taken from the album Television's Greatest Hits Volume 2. Our next track actually takes a sample from another album in this series. One of the oddest locations you encounter in the game is Boris's Bar, or as it's known in the US, Jackie's Cafe. The atmosphere seems normal at first until a secret door behind the bar reveals the reverse dimension of Moonside, which we'll be discussing later. The music for the bar has a random mishmash of elements going on, ranging from the Star-Spangled Banner playing in the background to an old-timey horn sample haphazardly thrown on top of the track. Tanaka used a sample of the intro to the short film series Our Gang, which would later be renamed to The Little Rascals. The track has 2 distinct layers of the sample, one playing repeatedly at the same pitch, and one playing at various pitches. When combined, these create a nice off-kilter dissonance that really helps sell the shady vibe of the bar. As previously mentioned, this sample is taken from the first volume in the Television's Greatest Hits album series. Behind the counter at Boris's Bar, you can find a secret door which takes you to the reverse dimension of Moonside. The music for this area has an eerie and otherworldly feel to it, which seems to defy any specific rhythm or tempo. This song is made up almost entirely of a sample from the track Keep On Laughin' by frontman of the Cars, Rick Ocasek. This sample is once again used in 2 main layers, one with the sample being played at 2 distinct pitches with some heavy delay, and one with the sample being played repeatedly at a low pitch. A chirping synth is added with some stereo delay to give us the final track. Next, let's look at the 3 songs from EarthBound that sampled the Beatles. When first traveling through Winters, you'll encounter a painfully easy dungeon created by a man named Brick Road. Later in the game, you encounter Brick Road once again. However, by this time, he has converted his entire body into a giant dungeon called Dungeon Man, who will join your party briefly upon your completion of the dungeon. During your short time with him in the desert, the game plays a unique song with a relentless pounding drum beat. These drums are taken from the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band reprise. While this track uses multiple layers of the drum beat, they can be divided into 2 basic categories: the main drum loops and the kick drum accents. Together, they make up nearly the entire track, with just a single channel dedicated to sound effects. The next Beatles sample we'll look at comes from just before the end of the game, when Ness and his friends use the phase distorter to travel to the Cave of the Past. Although this is the time they go there before it's actually in the past, so I guess it's just the cave. Huh. Either way, the music for this area is very simple, consisting of only a single horn sample. Many of you will have already recognized this sample as the intro to the Beatles' All You Need Is Love. Like most of the other tracks here, the samples can be divided into 2 main categories: the main horns with delay and a second set of horns at a lower pitch. A minor difference this time, however, is that 2 of the delay channels are playing at a slightly lower pitch, making the echoes sound off-key. These delays are combined with the main samples to make up the final song. Let's take a look now at the final Beatles sample. One of the main markers of progression throughout the game are the 8 Your Sanctuary locations you visit after defeating their Sanctuary Guardians. At these locations, you record the melodies of the sanctuaries in your Soundstone, a key item you acquire at the very beginning of the game. If you check the progress of your Soundstone before all 8 melodies have been collected, you can hear a muffled drum loop panning back and forth. These drums are taken from Give Peace a Chance by the Plastic Ono Band, a group formed by John Lennon in order to experiment artistically outside of the Beatles. Tanaka heavily filtered and slowed the drum sample and then set it to pan constantly from left to right. Some light effects and a synth are then added on top. The next track contains maybe the most famous sample use in the game. While at the Cave of the Past, Dr. Andernuts informs you that Giygas is attacking from your location many years in the past, and thus you must travel to the past to fight him. The past version of the Cave of the Past has a very dark and ominous song, consisting of nothing but a single sample. Believe it or not, this horrifying sound actually comes from a Beach Boys song. This vocal sample is simply played at various pitches with some heavy delay to make the final track. The last 2 songs we'll be looking at both take their samples from the band His Name Is Alive's 1990 debut album, Livonia. Both of these tracks play during the end of the final battle with Giygas. The first one comes after Paula's prayer reaches Ness's mother, whose own prayer for her son's safety mortally wounds Giygas. As with pretty much every other track, there are 2 main layers of the sample, the first of which just loops it. As far as I'm aware, this is the only track in the game that uses some form of chopping in its sample. The 2 chops are taken from the track How Ghosts Affect Relationships. The second layer is such a complete mess it's barely worth explaining. These layers are combined with some synths and other effects to make up the track. The final track we have to discuss is the song that plays once Giygas has been defeated. After the strength of Paula's prayer reaches the player themselves, Giygas will be hit with an enormous amount of damage and will begin to disintegrate into static, while a dizzying track with a sample reminiscent of a shepherd's tone plays in the background. The sample for this song comes from the track Darkest Dreams. The two layers for this track are fairly simple, with the first just being a plain loop, and the second being a few copies of the sample rising in pitch and then looping. These layers are stacked together with some synths to finish up the end of the game. And that's it, those are all the known musical samples in EarthBound. I'd once again like to thank Fur from the Cat's Eye Discord server for providing me with the music files for EarthBound, which allowed me to isolate the samples for this video. Link to the Discord is in the description. Also in the description are links to my Patreon and Instagram. New beat tape dropping April 13th, by the way.